There you go, buddy.
Okay. So yeah, this is inheritance in JavaScript. One of the things that we have to learn about JavaScript is prototypes. And so this is not, I'm not really familiar with it. So I did have to like research a little bit about it. So what I came to find out is that every JavaScript object has a prototype. All JavaScript objects inherit their properties and methods from their prototype. And one of the things that I learned is to only modify your own prototypes. Don't modify the prototypes of the standard JavaScript objects. An example that we can see here, when we create an object, like let's say an animal, it creates a prototype, but overall it also um, points to like the object's prototype, which is like the master of all prototypes, if we can put it maybe in those words. And when we instantiate from like a class, um, dog is pretty much pointing to the prototypes of animals. And this is one way I found the way to inherit in JavaScript. There are plenty of ways to do it, but this is probably like the simple way that I found to be pretty useful. So here we saw that we made an animal class, the base, and here we're making the subclass, which is a cat. And basically, in order to inherit, we can assign the cat's prototypes to like a new animal object. And so, yeah, once we instantiate something with the new cat, we can see that like the kitten can have like the methods and properties of the cat and also of the animals. I wrote some code about this. Okay, so the base class would be the animal, and this has a function that is called eats, and all it does is going to print out animals eat. And so here I created a subclass cat. Now to inherit everything that animal has, we do cat dot prototype equals new animal. And here we can put the unique characteristics of the cat object. And so here we can see that this instantiated from the cat object into an object called kitten. And so when I refresh this page, we'll be able to see that that kitten has the 9 lives. And if we also call kittens eats, it is also able to print out animals eats because it inherited from the animal class. And here we see the results right here. We see 9, then we see animal eats, and we also see true. So in a way, we can see how the prototypes work. So the kitten, its prototype is the same as the cat prototype. And that is the most simplistic way I found um, that works for inheritance. I'm not sure of any other way. Is there any questions about this implementation?
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, it was like a little bit more. I'm not sure, like a little bit more confusing than other languages, but overall, I did get it. And so yeah, does anyone have any questions or suggestions?
I have kind of a leading question for you. Do you know, can you have multiple inheritance in JavaScript?
Like, let's say cat inherits like more than one base class.
Right.
Hmm. Okay. I didn't dive deep into that, but
If I remember correctly, you can't do that. You can only inherit in like one line. You can't inherit from multiple base classes at the same level.
Okay, so
That is
it would just be
correct.
like this one line. Okay.
Right. Some programming languages allow you to do that, but JavaScript does not.
So you couldn't have cat inherit any features from an object called mammal.
Correct, unless it was inline in the inheritance chain.
Correct, unless it was animal and then mammal inherited from animal, and then cat inherited from mammal. But mammal could not be on the same baseline as animal.
Okay. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that's the presentation that I missed out on Tuesday for the inheritance.
It's awesome, man. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And I apologize about the time thing, buddy. You can blame my kids.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I guess I will go. Anybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what I did was I thought it would be appropriate, since Dan did a really good job Tuesday showing us his checkerboard, to kind of build off of that. And it's nothing fancy. I didn't have a ton of time. I had other ideas I was going to try and implement, but I think this will give you the pretty good idea of how to manipulate elements, CSS classes, and CSS attributes through JavaScript. And so basically what I've done here is I've taken the Dan had here. He had an associative array called colors, where one meant red and two meant black. So I basically just commented that out and showed another way in which you could achieve the same result by retrieving that element that he's creating, that table data element, data, selecting its style, choosing the style attribute you want to manipulate, and then giving it the proper value. So I've done that twice here. So instead of doing, like I said, the associative array and assigning a predefined CSS class that he has here, black and red, basically just manipulate it within the DOM there. A few others, and a couple other things that you can do. Basically what I've done is just, if it's a prime, then I've increased the font size, I've changed the color of the font, and I've changed the background color of each one of those elements that are prime. So if I show you here, I can even reload. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then what you can also do to help manipulate an element's style is by assigning it an ID that you also then define within the CSS, in your CSS file. So I've taken every single one of those elements, and if they are prime, I've given it this ID called my ID, which I have defined right here. And so when I run that, sorry, it doesn't look like that's, oh, I made him hidden. I apologize. I was playing with some other stuff.
What's the button you use to comment it out like that?
On my Mac, I hold Command and then
/, right?
Yeah.
What do you do on Windows?
I think it might be Control /.
Control /.
What algorithm do you use for is prime?
Oh, that was my deal. Because it was a finite set, I just predefined the
okay.
the values that were up to the square root of the highest number,
Okay.
and then I just traverse that. So.
Right. So yeah, that's a couple different ways that you can manipulate elements on the DOM through CSS. So, were there any questions about this? Any other? I realize it might be difficult. Like even now, when I use CSS, it's kind of difficult to remember exactly what property you're wanting to change on an element. So those are always available for you to look up, but they're basically just the same as you would type them in CSS. However, like background color, for example, if you were to assign this property to a class or an ID, it would be written as that, and then you would, like blue or whatever it is. A little bit different in that you're going to have to they're camel cased. That's very important to remember. So that when you're choosing the property to manipulate, if it's 2 words, it's always camel cased.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Good example.
Any other questions? Awesome.
So, yeah, thank you.
I'm going to slip out of here, you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask, or I'll take off and check in with you later.
So just one quick question. So what exactly is the format for when we are requesting an evaluation of our fluency?
Yeah, I need to clarify that. I've had that question a couple of times this week. The syllabus or the iLearn makes it sound more complicated than it needs to be.